After their audio encounter, they put a protective cover over the audio equipment and packed up. They'd be waiting quite a while. Hal would have to go the long way around the ring to pick them up. Gabbro seemed happy about the delay. They had something to show. Chuck and Ponder followed them back through the town to a big theater built into the cliff. Gabbro brought a stack of slide reels up from the archive room, grinning like a kid with a pile of marshmallows. The lights dimmed automatically as Gabbro lit the projector and put in the first reel. They had to come down to the front and manually turn a wheel to advance the slides. Glimpses of life in a more peaceful time appeared on the big screen, perfectly preserved in full color. The first reel was about life in a lush green wetland far away, with a rained gas giant dominating the sky. In the living images, it was clear to see that they had feathers on their faces, giving them a softer appearance, especially around the eyes. Guess they aren't strictly lizard people. The next two reels showed life aboard the Stranger. Rafting, fishing, art. It was clear that the denizens were working hard to recreate the feeling of home away from home. All these scenes were soothing and reassuring somehow. No doubt the Harthians would see it as a sign that anything bad that happened was a misunderstanding. Deep down, they would always believe that everyone in the galaxy would be friends if they could sit around a campfire and talk it out. That's okay. Let them believe that. It makes them better people. Chuck couldn't stop thinking about the bird, lizard person that they'd shared their music with. We can see their history and their culture, and we can know all about them, but it only goes one way. They'll never be able to know the story of what happened, or who's trying to communicate with them. That blindness and isolation should have been alien, but it was all too familiar. My people never even had a history worth remembering. They're all dream prisoners, floating blindly in a haze of fear and loathing. Alone forever. Why was I the one to escape? Would my friends be better off if they'd never found me? As the show went on, it turned more disturbing. Portions of these reels were burned away, intentionally erasing some terrible secret. Ominous hints were all that remained. Sneaking in the darkness, obsessively wrapping chains upon chains over a sarcophagus. Visions of doom and fears of their own mortality, somehow connected to the eye. Weeping and finally falling asleep around the green soul fire. From what Ponder said, that's where they died, all circled around in a trance. From the balcony, Gabbro removed the last reel. They left the lamp in the projector and joined the other two on the viewing floor. Now that's spooky, Ponder said. Is it a problem that I didn't understand most of it? No problem. That's just an intro. Pretty cool though, right? Yeah, Ponder nodded. I really like the ones about life before they went nuts. I wish there was more of that. Chuck liked the music in the show, and it gave her food for thought. Still, she was hoping to get some clarity in her thoughts and feelings, not just more questions. I thought you said this would have something to do with me or that lizard person, or the meaning of life? Show's not done. You gotta see the one about my visit to Giant's Deep. Wander, would you advance the slides? I guess I'll follow along with your weirdness a little longer. But there's no slide reel. That didn't seem to bother their host. Ponder sat next to the control and uncertainly advanced the knob. Nothing but an empty projector screen. Wait, what was that? A dark shape came into frame. Gabbro was standing by the projector, putting their hands up to the light. What's that? Are they really doing hand puppets now? They made a blob with a rounded front and little thingies sticking down. They made rocket sounds with their mouth. Whoosh. I guess that's the cockpit and those fingers of the landing struts. Pretty clever. Gabbro's ship descended and landed on the solid surface that was the bottom of the screen. Perfect landing, of course. A finger hopped out and bobbed along, walking on the island. Now I'm gonna go explore the island and do science and stuff, 'cause I'm a good astronaut and not a goof. That's not what feldspar and hornfels say. Then they started to make a whooshing sound, like a howling wind. A pillar of chaotic hand movement approached. Ah! A tornado! No, my ship! The lander hand got sucked away off the screen, and then fell back to the horizon as a little fingertip. Sploosh! Get back here! They flattened their hands and made wavy motions across the screen. These waves are intense. I've used up all my fuel. Help! Right, I forgot how scary the ocean can be for other people. Land! Land! I'm saved! Is this a different island than I started? What's that statue? They folded back their ears and tented their hands over their head to imitate the front profile of a nomai. It's moving. Hey, it's looking at me funny. What do I do? Wee-oo, wee-oo, wee-oo. Gabbro pointed their flashlight at the middle of the statue's forehead and clicked it on and off, making it flash. My life is flashing before my eyes, but mostly just my memories of losing the ship, which is not very helpful. Gabbro spread their old droopy ears out, letting the profile of the shadow become Harthian again. They scratched their noggin. Wow, that was confusing. I lost my supplies too. What do I do? Gabbro stepped closer to the projector again and looked like they were getting ready to tickle the lens. Hey, why is the sky so bright? Sure is loud. They made a childish cacophony of fiery explosion sounds, and frantic hand motions covered the screen. And that's when I got vaporized by nuclear fire for the first time. The projector shut off, and the lights came back on. What? Ponder wondered, and checked Gabbro for any signs of having been incinerated. I thought you were telling a real story. Yeah, sure am. The old weirdo found a seat and turned it toward the others, in a more conversational setting. That's where I was when the incident happened, with the hatchling and the supernova and the time loop. Ponder was fascinated. So you remember being burned up? Did it hurt? Gabbro shrugged. Yeah, but not very long. Once I got used to it, it felt really good to be alive on the other side. I can't believe anyone could get used to that, Ponder marveled. Chuck was already familiar with the topic, but there was one thing she didn't know. You and Hatchling were both in a time loop, but we only hear about their adventures. Why didn't you do anything? It sounds like you were just lounging around in your hammock for the whole time. Yeah, but not by choice. I love naps as much as anyone, but I was panicking. I was back on the island watching my ship get tossed over the horizon again, and I thought I must have hallucinated or something. I swam out again, trying to catch up with my ship, but the current carried it away each time. I drowned, more than once. So I set up my hammock on that beach, hoping the current would do the work. I waited for the ship and the island to cross paths again, but they never did. Never could get back into orbit before the time loop ended. That part makes sense. Chuck pushed a little further. Did you ever go with the hatchling after they found you? Gabbro shook their head. It was a while before they came looking for me. Neither of us knew what was going on at that point. I told them about Statue Island and suggested they go check on the orbital probe cannon. They wanted to take me with them, but I couldn't let them start doing that. They would have wanted to bring me along all the time, and I'd just slow them down. So I pretended that I didn't want to go anywhere. Sounds pretty selfless when you put it like that, but I still have my suspicions. Gabbro seemed to take it as fate. My time buddy was supposed to run around, go on a journey, discover things. But I was supposed to stay and think. I formed a routine, like waking up in the morning. Every time I got sent back, I'd say thanks for being alive, then I'd tie my hammock and play Traveler on the flute. That way I'd keep my head, and they could find me whenever they needed to talk. They needed somebody stable, somebody who understood what they were going through. Pretty rough crash course if you ask me. What did you talk about? Ponder wondered. Is that when you learned all about Nomai technology? Yeah, they came by to tell me about their discoveries. Despite all the dying and stuff, they were really excited at first. The Nomai had chosen them. They had reached out with psychic powers and formed a spiritual bond. It was their destiny to be the hero and save the world. I knew them before, but I've never seen them happier than their first dozen loops. Gabbro smiled, thinking about it. That smile faded. After a while, it started to wear on them. Blowing up, crashing the ship, suffocating, getting eaten. They started to doubt if they could do it. But also, they were pretty discouraged by what they were learning. Ponder believed in discovery, so that stumped him. I would think that knowing more would be better. Ponder, sweetheart, sometimes the truth sucks. Knowledge is good, but the story we tell ourselves about those facts can be good or bad, the time traveler said. They'd been digging through a lot of Nomai records with that translator. Said the Nomai didn't choose them. They never had a clue it would even exist. It's an automatic system and we just happened to pass by when it activated. It was an accident. Now that's true, but it really stung the hatchling, got him down. I'm just like the probe cannon, they said. Launching in a random direction every day with no real direction. The whole universe is like that. Just random chance with infinite tries. Anything that seems special is an accident. Every possible result is bound to happen, and we assign meaning to the one we like. Nothing matters, it's just another iteration, and it'll be gone in the next blink. Gabbro started to seem a little distant. Once they found out how to get into the time machine, they said they might just turn it off and let it end. This version of the hatchling's story is a lot more relatable. Ponder's ears drooped, which was rare. Gosh, I'm glad they didn't give up. The stories made it sound like they were so sure of themselves. What did you say to all that? Gabbro put up their hands. Nothing. Everything they said made sense, but it didn't sit right. I couldn't think of anything to say that would help, and then we blew up again. They let that stew in their minds a bit, and feel the weight before lifting it. Next time I saw him, I told him we'd been looking at it all wrong. Turns out it only activated one time, on the moment the probe passed by the eye. In that moment, it could have been anyone walking by, but it wasn't. It was you, a trained astronaut, with a ship and a translator. An explorer who could go and find out what was happening, and do something. If we're talking about probability, there shouldn't have been anyone at all. For thousands of years, there was nobody to pair with the Nomai memory statues but old bones. We weren't capable of spaceflight until a couple decades before the supernova. Gabbro locked eyes with Ponder like they were the hatchling. You are the one, It is your destiny. I know it is because it happened to you. That's why I know you'll succeed if you trust Providence. So that's what I told him. Ponder was hooked, and they had that face again. Just the same as if they were listening to stories of daring physical exploits. And that changed their mind? They wanted to believe that, but they weren't sure, the space guru admitted. So I had them take a break. Spend a few loops having meaningful conversations with the folks they care about. Roast some marshmallows with the other travelers. Take a nap by the fire. Hatchling probably spent some time talking to Dad, too. Too bad they don't remember. Reaching the vessel in the eye is what everyone talks about, but I'm mostly glad they found feldspar. When they came back, they'd made a decision. They'd search everything high and low, every planet, every ruin, every record. They turned over every rock and pine cone to make sure they had the facts, and only then would they come to a conclusion. Sure am glad they did. That's how we found a stranger. Gabbro glanced up at the theater they were sitting in. Once the hatchling figured out the history of this place, which is an insane adventure, by the way, that just sealed the deal. The whole probability thing was just gone. I didn't have to remind the hatchling to have faith after that. They were locked in. They were meticulous. Had to save the most people and the most knowledge. Had to eliminate all possibility for error. They made a firm face and changed their voice. Every second takes 100 years off the sun's life and knocks a square kilometer off of Brittle Hollow. I've never seen someone so focused. Final flight from Ash Twin to the Nomai vessel. They flew that route 100 times. Ponder was satisfied with the whole thing, but Chuck couldn't make the connection. This spooky, ruined ghost town inspired someone in a positive way? What did they find that made them so sure about their destiny? Gabbro turned their attention to her and seemed a bit surprised. Oh, I guess feldspar didn't teach you everything. To be honest, I'm not sure they understood it anyway. They'd usually let the history nerds handle it. They spent some time finding ways to articulate the basics. The eye of the universe sends out a signal so that a conscious observer can something. It needs a thinking, feeling person, but I don't know what happens after that. Since it was there before our universe, and it's connected to the motion of all subatomic particles, it could be the starting point of our new universe. Anyway, the eye was just sitting in deep orbit of our star system, calling out to space. Given a long time, somebody was bound to find it. I mean real long, like lifetime of the universe long. And someone did. The Nomai, Ponder piped up. No. Gabbro put up a correcting finger. These lizard people. They found the eye long before the Nomai came along. Now, as you know, they didn't like it. Made them go all crazy. But it wasn't enough for them to leave the eye alone. They wanted to make sure no one else found it. They were able to construct a device that could block the eye's signal, stop it from getting out. But it's so powerful, Ponder objected. I didn't think that was possible. Well, lizard people did it. Boom. It's gone. It's over. There was no way that the Nomai or any other spacefaring folks would ever know that the eye of the universe existed. Nobody would know what was going on when all the stars blew up. No conscious observer to stabilize the quantum phenomena. Life, universe, gone. And there wouldn't even be anyone to pass anything on to whatever came next. Chain of existence is donezo. But then a lizard folk defies the others, turns it off and releases the signal for a brief window, maybe a couple of minutes. It'd been calling out for thousands of years, silenced. All that was left was one thin echo of a couple minutes. Ponder lit up with wonder. You mean the one we played music with? That's why you said thank you, Chuck realized. Yup. None of us would be here if he didn't do that. Gabbro rested a hand on the tape recorder with the precious tape. He never got to find out if he made a difference, but the Nomai actually saw it and understood that they had to find it. Even though it was hard, even though the machine made it invisible, they came up with a genius solution to the impossible problem. The time loop thing in Ash Twin? Ponder guessed correctly again. That and the probe cannon found the eye anyway. No signal needed. But then, they were taken out before their time and the end was inevitable again. All the tools were there, but there was nobody to use them. The universe was double donezo. And then, who built a civilization and developed space travel just in time? Who connected with the statue on the one moment it activated, with the knowledge and training of an astronaut, and with a fully fueled spaceship ready to go? The hatchling. So yeah, the Nomai time machine gave them infinite tries to achieve the correct result, but only after it was impossible twice. Multiple impossible events with just one shot. If they hadn't lined up, there'd be nothing left. So there's a bigger purpose to it all, but it wasn't the Nomai's plan. It was a bigger plan. We just participated in it, said yes to it. We had faith and traveled the path that was made for us. I guess it's comforting that there's some sort of destiny or providence or whatever, Chuck said. But I don't understand how I fit into all that. All I've done is make things worse. Gabbro blinked at her and gave her a look. It's as if what they see is totally different. You're here trying to make it right. That's pretty crazy. Would any other angler in history do that? She shook her head. That makes you the one who's different. Just like our friend in the dream dungeon. That seed was going to be a problem one day, with or without you. Feldspar did a good thing by you. Your story isn't over. Whatever happens, I'm sure we're on the right timeline. They gave her a smile, very relaxed and friendly. For a moment, Chuck forgot to be afraid of what would happen. She forgot to be afraid of herself. The big light in the middle of the stranger began to dim in a simulated sunset as they made their way back. After another trip along the river, they all gathered round the fire at base camp. Rybeck and Hal were thrilled to hear about the musical first contact. Gabbro gave them the tape recorder and they played it back over and over. They asked a lot of questions, but the music itself was the only real answer. Eventually, the conversation was just between the two of them, as they discussed what could and could not be communicated through sound. Small numbers could be tapped out, and materials like water and metal would make recognizable noises, but how could they string these concepts together in sentences? Etc. Chuck couldn't pay attention. Something was bothering her, and it bothered her more the more she thought about it. Finally, she just had to blurt it out. Hey, Gabbro. You said that everything happens for a reason. That there's some good force in the universe that makes everything work out. That when the impossible happens, it must be destiny. But is destiny a good thing? Bad, impossible things happen too. Huh? What comes to mind? Maybe some things are just an accident, Ponder figured. And the interloper, ghost matter, that came from nowhere and Killed everyone for no reason. Gabbro nodded, acknowledging they brought up good points. That's one way to think about it. But after we knew everything, well, everything that a time pal can, we put the pieces together a little differently. They chewed the rest of their marshmallow and gulped. I think there is a reason. While I was pondering life, the universe, and everything, I realized it's good to exist. All my friends and family, the natural world, I'm glad we're here. Whoever, whatever created everything, that force of Providence is good. But I think evil is a real thing too. I know it is, Chuck replied. Gabbro was a little startled how firm she was on the topic. You do? I mean, I think so too. But I have to convince most Hearthians about that. She sighed. I'm not most Hearthians. Gabbro poked their stick in the fire. My theory is, when we lose faith, when we don't trust the path in front of us, it opens the door for evil to come in and wreck everything. There's a few things I didn't tell you. They didn't go bad when they reached the eye. They already fell. They gestured up to the darkened ring world. What you see here is all that's left of their home world. The young explorers both spared a glance to the artificial habitat around them and stared blankly at Gabbro. Huh? In their rush to get here, they stripped their planet bare, down to a scorched wasteland. There are no rivers and trees where they come from. This is it. Stars above, Ponder exclaimed. They destroyed their own home? I never knew that. Chuck frowned, frustrated. But how can you say they lost faith when they did that to try to get to the eye? Just 'cause you do something in the name of the eye doesn't mean it's what the eye or the universe would want. Why would you destroy the creation on your way to the creator? The shaman asked rhetorically. They knew it was wrong. I think they did it because they were afraid someone else would get here before them. They wanted to be the first ones here, to control the eye's power. But the guilt of destroying their homeworld caused them to be fearful of the eye by the time they reached it. Shame turned bitter and they learned to hate. Gabbro tossed their perfectly good poke stick onto the fire. They tried to hide their past. They destroyed the physical records and hid copies deep in the dream world. We wouldn't have found out, except the hatchling turned into a super time burglar. I bet the lizard people would be furious to know a little blue gremlin stole all their secrets. Is that why they're mad at us? Ponder asked, still a little spooked by the ghosts. No, they forgot. Gabbro dismissed it, as if it was their fault for bringing it up. Hatchling never came here in the true timeline. Just memories from a future that didn't happen. Chuck shook her head. I thought the Bramble. I thought we were the only ones who destroyed a planet. No, they did it first. But they're not the only ones. Hearthians are the odd ones out. We're the only ones who haven't. Us and the Nomai, Ponder agreed. Gabbro took a deep breath. Wander, it's time I told you something. Only the travelers know the truth. I think the Nomai really were good-hearted. A lot of them disagreed, but they got desperate. What are you saying? You know about the sun station, right? Ponder nodded along slowly. I know that it's there, and you can get to it from Ash Twin, but it's a pretty dangerous place. I don't know what it does. Gabbro put it plain. The Nomai built it to blow up the sun and destroy the whole solar system. What? Ponder spat out. The two archaeologists looked up from their conversation to make sure it wasn't about them. That can't be true. Why would they do that? They wanted to cause a supernova to power their whole time scheme. Figured they could probably undo the damage, but they didn't know that for sure. They just couldn't wait for things to happen naturally. It had to be them. It had to be right then. Couldn't accept they might be another stepping stone on a longer journey. But they didn't, though. We're still here, Ponder argued. They tried. They turned it on and fired something at the sun, but it didn't work. I don't know. Maybe it did something. And you know what else? The interloper appeared the very same day. Wow, I guess that doesn't sound like an accident. They had to stop and, well, ponder that. I always thought the Nomai were so noble. We read translated text where they were even concerned about disturbing native plants. I never thought they would mess up like that. But I don't want them to be destroyed or anything. I wish they were still around to make it right. In a way, they are. And they did make it right. They passed down the mantle, so to speak. And it's nice to know that there are other Nomai vessels out there somewhere. That's crazy. I had no idea, Chuck admitted. But I still don't know what that has to do with me and Dark Bramble. Well, like you two pointed out, Dark Bramble and the Interloper don't make sense as random events. But if evil exists, then maybe it's not random either. They both just seem to come into existence with no rational origin and no purpose but destruction. Chuck nodded darkly, with the same suspicions. From what I gather, Dark Bramble must have come into existence in the middle of the fifth planet, about the time that the lizard people rejected the eye of the universe. Maybe it happened when they blocked the signal, Gabbro theorized. By the time the Nomai came here, the Bramble had already broken out of the ice planet and grown huge, and the warp shadow pulled in their vessel. I knew it. She couldn't contain a despondent huff. Dark Bramble really is pure evil. It's all a manifestation of fear and doubt and hate, all wrapped up in a rejection of anything good. So that's what I am, then. No, Ponder started to say. Gabbro raised a hand to stop him. Even if we are the result of the errors or even the evil of the folks that came before us, we're all still alive because of their love and their faith. Chuck grabbed her arms as if she was cold, which she wasn't. But y'all are the ones with the love and faith and stuff. I'm made of the evil. I'm just imprinting and imitating you. Gabbro chuckled and shook their head. We all are. Everybody who's good is just responding with gratitude to the good that's come to us. When you love, when you create, that's an act of faith. You just agreeing with Providence. I want to. What if it's just my nature? I don't want to keep pushing back. I just want to be honest. The old stargazer was patient with them. Our buddy in the dream dungeon is the same kind of thing as all the other lizard people who were bad. The only difference is, when Providence called out to him, they said no and he said yes. He reached out for it. He had faith. If he didn't, there'd be no Nomai here, no hatchling. They all had faith, and that's what made them good. Not whether they were a frog, a goat, or a scary night lizard. I don't know. Chuck wanted it straight without any funny euphemisms. Those are all real people, though. Does Providence have anything for monsters? What are the chances in dark Bramble that you'd run into a Harthian? Gabbro asked her. Take you in? Raise you as their own tadpole? Yeah, that never happens. Not in the history of ever. I think it's pretty amazing. Feldspar opened up to you, and every day you choose to respond to their kindness. To be a Harthian. To be one of us. Not just a Harthian, a traveler. Like the Nomai on the moon. Like our friend down there. She looked into the fire. Ponder reached out and she let him hold her hand. It was nice. Even though she didn't have a real hand, the gesture was meaningful. I guess some things don't need a translator. She wasn't a real Harthian, but they loved her and accepted her. I think Ponder even likes me. A lot. It's just what I wanted. I think I've been afraid to admit it. Afraid they were making a mistake with me. The campfire crackled. It was a lot to take in, but what to do about it? She just had one more question. What am I supposed to say to all that? Hey, Gabbro? The two young'uns looked to the wise old... They'd fallen asleep sitting up, and were already snoring. They both giggled. The two of them laid back on the ground and watched the stars turn past on the great wheel. They were still holding hands. The big light didn't go black. It had just turned green and dimmed. Apparently it was mimicking something in the sky in their home. Probably that green gas giant they saw in the slide reels. Deep space was visible on either side of the ring, as if the hull was glass, even though it wasn't. One of the nerds will tell me why that is, I'm sure. All that ugly stuff that she stuffed down didn't feel like it was there anymore. Instead, she was filled with a warmth that didn't come from the fire. Resting there with Ponder, she was content. Everything was right. How long am I supposed to keep holding Ponder's hand? I don't want to let go. They're probably thinking the same thing. Chuck was the last one awake, but she didn't feel alone. She felt more together than she ever had. Hey, you out there. Universe, Creator, Providence. Thanks for giving me hope. My answer's yes.